England Take. I'm your host, AJ Kierstead. NewEnglandTake.com to get more from the show. That's a Substack. Please be sure to follow me over there if you want every episode in your inbox. Thank you to WKXL for picking up the show. Saturdays, 8:30 a.m. in Concord and Manchester. And thegranitegrok.com as well as Concord TV for also picking up the program. All right, excited today to be joined by an individual who has received many headlines in recent months, but especially over the last week and a half at this point now. Andru Volinsky, he's the former New Hampshire Executive Councilor and gubernatorial candidate, author of the book The Last Bake Sale, which I'm assuming we'll talk a little bit about and at some point during this show, and he also does have a Substack, also andruvolinsky.substack.com. If you want to learn more about stuff he's up to, I will put it down in the episode description. Thanks so much for joining me. I have a lot of stuff with regards to education funding I'm hoping to break down with you.
Sure. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, be a little lighthearted here. I saw your press conference last week, and the meme. You ever hear the meme Leroy Jenkins before? It's an old World of Warcraft meme where there's a bunch of guys getting ready. It's a video game to do a battle, and they're all getting their things together. And all of a sudden, one of the guys just screams Leroy Jenkins and goes straight into battle, and all his friends are looking like, "Okay, I guess we're going now." And that's. it's very strong what you're going with yours. So this is the 3-3 tax savings plan is what you proposed in the State House steps. NHTaxSavingsCalculator.com, which I will once again put in the episode description if people want to check it out. But just at the get-go, you've been involved with the Claremont lawsuits and all sorts of other things in discussion around school funding. But in 2026, what are we trying to fix? What, like in your vision, what is the broken piece right now?
There are a number of broken pieces, starting with political leadership in the state. We have a almost 30-year-old decision in Claremont 2, decided in 1997, that said it's a state responsibility to fairly fund education, that the taxes to pay for a constitutionally adequate education are state taxes, and state taxes need to be uniform across the state. Instead of complying with that, we have a system where taxes to pay for education are imposed at the local level. They differ wildly from one community to the next. Some communities with very low tax rates, like Newcastle, Portsmouth, Moultonborough, communities with lots of property wealth, raise a lot of money for their kiddos with very low tax rates, while other communities, Charlestown, Claremont, because they have low property values, have very high taxes and still can't quite raise enough. So we have waited quite some time for the legislature to propose constitutional remedies for this really unfair tax system. Makes housing unaffordable, makes it difficult to live and prosper in many communities in our state. And so we came forward with the 3-3 tax savings plan. It's 3-3 because it involves a 3% New Hampshire education income tax with very generous deductions, and a true $3 statewide property tax with a $250,000 homestead exemption.
So we'll dive a little more into the income tax side of this, but at a fundamental level, do you believe we are funding students? I know the individual student mechanism that how we look at how schools are funding is a little scurry. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's the metric we have right now. Right now, we've seen a tremendous increase in how much we're spending on the per pupil level. Do you think our per pupil level overall is okay, is sufficient?
The 3-3 tax savings plan is not designed to increase per pupil spending. It's to make the spending more fair and equitable. It's, in a way, it's asking people to look up. Look up at the people who earn a lot more than you and who don't pay their fair share. It's about spreading the burden, not increasing the overall burden.
So, okay. So how feasible do you think it is to have an income tax in the state? Like at a very fundamental level. So that was kind of the reason why I made the joke about Leroy Jenkins at the beginning is the Democrat leadership here at the State House in Concord even outright said these deputy minority leader outright said I don't agree with Jason Osborne of much of anything, but I do agree that we're not going to have an income tax in the state. Governor has called it out saying we're not going to do that. What do you say to the people that are outright on the face of it saying that we're not going to do an income tax?
Well, I love the deputy minority leader's ex post. That's Laura Talerski. She represents Nashua. Nashua would get a 50% reduction in its school property taxes under the 3-3 tax savings plan. And given the nature of the deductions that we built into the plan, a family of four doesn't pay the income tax until their income exceeds $100,000. The median income in New Hampshire, coincidentally released on the same day as our tax plan, is $99,000. So the median household won't pay the income tax. The people who will pay it are high income earners who should contribute their fair share. I think it was an unfortunate turn of phrase for Ms. Talerski to invoke Jason Osborne's name, given all of the terrible things promulgated by Mr. Osborne and the Free Staters in New Hampshire.
So you think I guess getting back to it, do you think that it's feasible that you're going to be able to convince, I mean, because ultimately in New Hampshire, we're a purple state. You're going to need to get Republicans on board with this being able to happen. In the middle, there's obviously many people that are not free state Republicans, or as you call them, or the libertarian-leaning individuals is how I would phrase it. Myself would be included in that bucket. Where how do you get people in the middle in a purple state to side with getting an income tax when it's been beaten down for literally decades that this state is never going to have an income tax?
Yeah, so if you look at the registrations in New Hampshire, it's about a third Democratic, a third Republican, and a third independent. There are a lot of just plain spoken average people who aren't political ideologues, who don't buy into the pledge, who are willing to consider this. And quite frankly, when I talk to people out of state and they hear that the libertarians threaten to kill me, if you're a libertarian, I'm going to ask you about how you feel about that threat. That the libertarians threaten to kill me just for talking about an income tax plan. They look at the plan and they say, what? 3% flat with huge deductions? That's actually a pretty modest way to fund education, a very important civic responsibility. And normal people, AJ, don't understand why the libertarians are making death threats against me. So maybe as a libertarian, you can help me understand that.
I'm not part of the party. I call out the LPNH all the time. I've called out a couple of the people in that party directly. I am not a member. I'm a voting Republican when it comes to that nature. The LPNH is its own nightmare.
Well, have you called them out about the death threat?
Yeah, I believe I did on X on that. They say a lot of things around race and violence that I do not agree with and do openly call out on the show. And,
well, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Unacceptable in the discourse. I like having conversations and having people who I disagree with on the show a fair bit. I've had people from both sides of the aisle, all the political aisle, and those that don't like either side of the political aisle on.
Good,
So,
as it should be.
Yes, 100%. So, I understand. I want to go back to what you're saying about Nashua. So, I mean, if I had to guess, the majority of the population in Nashua are renters. It's nature of the bigger cities.
I'd say you have a bigger concentration of renters in bigger cities. I don't know that it'd be accurate to say the majority of the people who live there are renters. Do you understand the difference
Yep.
between the
Yeah, I
two?
understand.
Yeah. So
So,
I agree there are a lot of renters in Nashua, a lot in Manchester. Laura Terlersky happens to represent Nashua, so it's relevant.
so how does it not have carryover effects for us? I'm a renter too. I live in Concord and I'm a
Mhm.
renter. How does
Uh-huh.
it not have carryover effects for us where, hey, guess what? We got an income tax. The landlords, they're going to be charged this income tax. It's not going to they're not just gonna eat it. Like what do you
So
say
it's
to
it's
that?
funny you say that because we actually built in a renter's homestead exemption into the 3-3 tax savings plan. So if you have a $3 statewide property tax, a true one, and you have a home that's worth more than $250,000, you don't pay the statewide tax on the first 250,000 in equalized value. $3 times 250,000 is 750. So what we did for renters is we said your unit is entitled to a $750 renter's homestead exemption. If
But
there
what about the landlord? So the person who owns the building.
the person who owns the building already has you paying his property taxes through
Yes.
your rent. And what we're saying is number one, the landlord's tax burden through most of the state is going down with this plan. Second, the part that they indirectly have you paying for, AJ, we're going to give you a $750 credit. So if you share your apartment with roommates, I don't know your circumstances, it's one $750 credit. You have to figure out how to split it. If you're on your own, you get the credit. So if you are a single person in New Hampshire, you earn $35,000 and you rent an apartment. First, you don't pay the income tax on your $35,000 because that's the size of the taxpayer deduction. And second, you get $750 because you don't pay the income tax, you don't get it as a credit, you get it as a check under this plan. So we've thought that through to take care of younger people. Going back to an earlier point that you made, there's an organization in New Hampshire called Stay Work Play.
Yep.
They focus on folks under 40. They did a survey about 2 months ago, and in their survey, they found that people under 40 do not have the same, do not take the same offense against income and broad-based taxes as older people who are entrenched in yesterday's politics.
I think young people are nuts, but that's me.
I,
As a
I think you're
39
part of
year
that.
old,
I think
I'm in
you're
the
part of
bracket
that
that
group.
I'm in
Yeah.
the bracket that Stay Work Play likes. I tremendously disagree. I sat through some of, so I actually had Corinne on the show a few weeks ago. She's in the feed if anyone missed that episode, and it was interesting breaking down some of the conversations that she has with various people. There's one I wanted to leave. It's real and a really important point that I wanted to ask about this that has tremendous financial impact in the nature of making this work. So moving to we're gonna move all the funding to the state level essentially is how it kind of breaks down.
Most.
When it comes to we're gonna shift the focus from the local jurisdictions, but if we're gonna be doing this, are you proposing we outlaw local school taxes for property taxes?
Not outlaw it because the 3-3 tax savings plan produces $2 billion. We spend 4 billion. About 400 million or so comes from the federal government. So there's still a chunk that is paid by your local property taxes. I think the plan, when we worked out the numbers, there are 8 or 9 communities that don't pay any local property taxes and still keep their same level of spending. The other communities pay a small portion. of their school budget from local property taxes. That keeps local control in place. But the decrease in local property taxes is such that 80% of the state, after paying their income tax, will result in a net reduction in their school taxes.
I guess there's a fundamental economic issue when it comes to that. If we're going to be moving to the income taxes, another portion of paying even more money into what I view as a bloated amount that we're putting into currently, for especially when you look at we talked about the per student rate earlier, which has increased 96% over the last 20 years, which is even adjusted for inflation, which is pretty extreme. Bartlett Center, I'm sure
When you
you've
say even adjusted for inflation, the inflation's gone up by what, 4% a year over 20 years? So that's 80%. So there's 80% of your 96 accounted for right there. We happen to be in New England where energy costs are high and health costs are high and the cost of living is high, so our wages are high. But if you, instead of citing meaningless national statistics, AJ, if you looked at New Hampshire in the context of New England, which is our economic region, you would find that New Hampshire falls in the middle of the New England states. I think Massachusetts and Connecticut have higher per pupil
But
expenditures.
that's crazy. It's $26,000 a year is the average for New Hampshire at this point. That's a tremendous amount of money.
It's a tremendous amount of money. How much did healthcare costs go up in business, not in schools? How,
Healthcare is an entirely different broken model that I've talked a bit about here. I have a bit of a
yeah,
conflict of interest when it comes to
we
some of
should
that
have
stuff, but
healthcare for
it's
all,
well,
but 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 you need to provide healthcare for your employees, whether you're in business or you're in a school. And until somebody fixes the cost of healthcare, schools need to keep up those payments. So what do you propose we do for janitors, teachers, administrators for their health care? Are we going to
administrators we
stop
should
paying?
downsize considerably is my take on it. I've had conversations. I've actually had given to give fair space to the airtime here. I've even had conversation with the New Hampshire School Administrators Association to talk to them about it. We have way too many school districts. I mean, that's a fundamental issue here in the state where we should. I'm hugely supportive of us investigating having counties be the school districts. It makes a hell of a lot more sense.
I don't necessarily disagree on having too many school districts, but how much, $4 billion is the total spend on K-12 public education. What percent goes to administrators?
I know it's a drop in the bucket, but when you
It's
look at
5%. So if you
yeah,
wiped out all administrators, no principals, no superintendents, no business managers, on $4 billion, you save $200 million. Does that make you happy? Is that going to restructure the cost of education in New Hampshire? No. Should it be looked at? Absolutely. Is it something that you lead with if you want to reform the cost of education in New Hampshire? It's ridiculous, AJ. We need to get on the page and talk about what drives education costs. And it's not the administrators.
what
They,
would you? Well, that's why I kind of wanted to start the episode with because I feel like if we're going to talk about restructuring, we got to figure out what we're refocusing on to make sure we're funding appropriately. What do you think is the big cost drivers that's causing these increases?
so
It's
I,
teacher salaries are fantastic in the state. Like I say, they're extremely high for on average. We keep hearing that being the scapegoat that we're not paying for teachers enough. Our teachers make pretty good money, fortunately, in the state overall.
how do the teachers in New Hampshire salaries compare to the other New England states?
I think they're relatively high. When Massachusetts aside, I think compared to Vermont and Maine, they're actually higher, if I remember right.
So Massachusetts is a border state, so you
It's a
have a
city.
whole.
They got it's city funding, and it's the we can't compare a rural state to Massachusetts. The whole funding model
So
wouldn't make sense.
my point is that if you're competing for talent, you do have to consider the salary scales in border states because they border us and it's easy to commute there. But if you want to say rural versus city. You've got Nashua on the border. You've got Portsmouth within commuting distance. All of those places compete with the northern tier of Massachusetts for teachers. I am pretty sure that Maine is lower than New Hampshire on
Yeah.
average by a little bit, and that Vermont is on
So,
par.
okay, so
So,
going back, what do you think is the big cost driver
so
that's making you
I think
mainly because you've been looking at this for decades. So I'm not being critical. I sincerely want to know what you think is the big cost driver.
I think you need to start with healthcare costs, which are benefits are generally a third of salary costs, and salaries are two-thirds of the cost of public education because it's such a personnel-oriented kind of business. If you think about it, their real stock and trade are the people who work there. So you have that. We have a broken model for providing healthcare. We have what are called risk pools. We have 6 or 8 different risk pools in the state when they're designed to be low regulation, low cost, high efficiency organizations. They shouldn't be competing against each other. I know this area because I represented the Secretary of State dozen or 14 years ago when he forced the risk pools to return almost $100 million in overcharged premiums to taxpayers across the state. So I'd start there. I'd look at the other commoditized costs that instead of aggregating them across the state, individual districts have to do it. So who cares whether Rochester buys its paper from one dealer and Nashua buys it from another? We should have a central paper supply and buy with the purchasing power of the entire state. We could combine districts. I don't disagree with that. We have too many. New Hampshire would be one district if we were in Florida, right?
Yeah.
They have it by county, and we're 150,000 odd students, so that's less than a county. In Florida, we could do that. We have buildings that haven't been attended to for years because we disbanded our building aid program. So they're inefficient in terms of heat. They're unsupportive of the educational programming, and a lot of them are dangerous to students. So we can start on all of those things, but the point of the 3-3 tax savings plan is to say, we're going to meet you where you are. Don't take our money and add to school spending. Keep your spending flat. Here's a fair way to do it that complies with the Constitution. And that's the purpose of the plan. You want to have an exploration of how we save costs? I'm for it, as long as we don't undermine the purpose.
How do we make sure this stays at the 3-3? That's it's one of my biggest paranoias when you look at state government, especially as fortunately someone's for the most part pretty happy where we've got Republican majorities. It's my side of the aisle on that, and I have a genuine concern that if it goes to the Democrats in a future election after something like this goes in place, that hey, now it's 5. How do we make
Those
sure it doesn't
damn
happen?
Democrats,
I
they're
know I
always
gotta
going to
blame them.
spend
Gotta
more.
yell at them.
So I think you can make that argument as long as the current system was working. So the current system is putting people out of their homes. The current system is making it impossible for young people like yourself to buy homes. The cost of housing is inflated in New Hampshire because our property taxes are so much bigger burden than they are in Maine and Vermont, our two northern New England neighbors. So you want to talk about some incredible fiction that may happen in the future and who knows why and who's in charge and the boogeyman is behind the tree always raising your taxes. You better be able to defend the current system because for a lot of people, people who are looking to maintain their livelihoods and their lifestyles in their homes, it ain't working so well, particularly if you're on a fixed income. So as you get to move from your age to my age and your income becomes fixed, but your property taxes go up by 15, 20, 25% every year, you have more and more people. New Hampshire is one of the three most quickly aging states in the nation, which means more and more people are fearful that they won't stay in their homes. And the Republicans and Libertarians in charge of the legislature won't do anything about it.
Well, shouldn't we be focusing then on building more homes that are of reasonable size so that we can make sure, A, we have more property tax holders in place that are able to do it? I don't understand the focus of shifting
You
to an
sound
income
like
tax.
it's an either or. And I'm saying the Republicans and the Libertarians in the legislature and in the governor's office don't do. So let me give you an example. The state of Maine has a property tax relief program for older residents. So if you can't keep up with your property taxes,
If
the
you can't
state
keep
of
up with your
Maine,
property tax, though, and you're getting
I
to that
wasn't
age, you
finished,
can't. Oh, I'm
AJ.
sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I think there's a fundamental
So,
issue with what you're saying, going with, but go with it. Yeah.
so if you are 65 or older or disabled in Maine and you can't keep up with your property taxes because they've gone up and your income hasn't matched, rather than lose your home, go to a more expensive nursing home model, the state of Maine will pay your local municipality your overdue taxes and they'll take a lien on your house. And then when you pass on or you sell the house, Maine gets paid back. It's a perfectly reasonable way to deal with aging in place, to facilitate aging in place. Now, why don't your Republicans and Libertarians talk about programs like that?
Because you're talking about the people that, on average, are utilizing more and more of the resources. Like the elderly population are more likely to be utilizing the various local resources that are paid into. They are less likely to be moving around, so they are. When it comes to the local municipal roads and things of that nature, like if you can't,
So
it's the sad thing about getting older, unfortunately, is if you can't afford to
I
maintain,
get
because it carries over to your home too. If you can't afford
I
your
get
property
it.
tax, are you able to afford maintaining your house?
Well, the question is, what are you going to do? You're going to put them on the ice floe?
Well, that's the reason why I say we build more housing so that we actually have more affordable housing that's for people very like my generation. Like we can't. It's the same boat. We're in the same boat as the elderly generation because we don't have any housing at a reasonable rate.
Well, so you have a family, a retired couple that's been in their home for 20, 30, 40 years. You want them then to move to a different house
If you
that
can't
they,
maintain it, because you go to a
well,
smaller house. I literally in my family, it's the same thing we're looking at with some of my old people aging in my family. Is we have a smaller
well,
place. It's probably going to be a lot more economical, and it's going to be a lot easier for you to maintain, especially as you age. If you have a house that's that big and you can't afford it, it's time to cash in, unfortunately. Or maybe you have family that moves in with you, something like that, and then you share that tax
wow.
burden. It's
In,
very
instead of
traditional.
having, instead of standing up, I think Maine's program is less than $5 million a year and takes care of a lot of the elderly population. You would object to that kind of, does that offend your libertarian sensibilities to have a government program, my goodness, that actually puts taxes to good use and keeps people instead? A lot of those folks aren't going to be able to adjust to a new home. They're going to go to the nursing home, and the cost of the nursing home is multiples of paying their damn taxes for a couple of years till they either can't live alone, can't keep up their house, and have to move to the nursing home, or they pass on. It's it's a humane way to do it, man, and it's in a state that is among the wealthiest states in the nation. Man, we have very different perspectives, AJ. I would keep people in their homes without putting them out on the ice floe in a heartbeat.
We're unfortunately out of time, so we've got broadcast timing on this for this episode. I really appreciate taking the time. Andru Volinsky, andruvolinsky.substack.com. Check out the nhtaxsavingscalculator.com and his book, The Last Bake Sale. Regardless of how you feel about it, the Claremont suits and everything around that is a fascinating story, and it's really good that everyone, both sides of the aisle, understands the issue and where it's coming from. I really appreciate you taking the time for this conversation. Hopefully got to see a little both sides of the situation. Thank you so much.
All right. Stay well. Be careful.
Thanks. It's the NewEnglandTake.com. Please be sure to like, subscribe. NewEnglandTake.com is the Substack. Please be sure to check it out. Please keep all your comments in good faith. We're trying to show a little both sides of the aisle when it comes to this conversation. AJ at NewEnglandTake.com. I would love to get your opinions on this conversation. Conversation went a different direction than I was thinking it would, so I'm really interested to know what people thought about it. YouTube, GraniteGrock.com, Concord TV, and WKXL. Next up over there is Facing the Future. All right, talk to you soon.